everybody, Susan Storm here, and today we're going to talk about what creates stress for ISFJs and how they respond to stress, as well as some coping mechanisms that might work a little better than what you naturally autopilot to. If you're not sure who I am, my name is Susan Storm, and I'm the founder of a website called psychologyjunkie.com. Over 1,000 articles about the 16 Myers-Briggs personality types, as well as the 9 Enneagram types. So if you'd like to find out more about ISFJs, you can definitely check out that website to find many articles about this type. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into stress and the ISFJ. So first, let's talk about what creates stress for ISFJs. One of the major things that creates stress for them is that they tend to take on more than they can handle. They can be very productive people. ISFJs are very giving people. They're often called names like the caretakers or the protectors. They care very much about the people in their community, the values of their community, particularly when it comes to partners and family members and close friends. So they will go way above and beyond to take care of the people that matter to them. And this does not just mean practically speaking in terms of offering a hot meal when someone's sick or giving someone a ride when they need it. It often means emotionally as well. They take on other people's feelings, often absorbing other people's feelings like a sponge. They care about the well-being of the group and often feel a sense of responsibility to make sure that everyone around them is feeling good and that there's a level of harmony with the people around them. So not only do they notice the physical details, the physical needs that people have, and how to make life more comfortable for everybody, but they're also noticing people's emotions, and they often feel responsible to tend to those emotions and to take care of them. So many times ISFJs end up in relationships where they are putting out a lot of energy. Now, even though that's a natural skill of the ISFJ, they are still introverted types. They still need a great deal of alone time. They need time to recharge, to reflect, to get in the zone, to be by themselves in order to be happiest and to feel well-rounded, energized, and inspired. But many times ISFJs push themselves to do all these things for other people, and in the process they don't give themselves as much alone time as they really need. Another thing that creates stress for ISFJs is when there is a lack of routine or a lack of consistency or predictability in their lives. ISFJs like to know what to expect. They like to know what's going to happen. They like having a plan. This doesn't mean that they want to be micromanaged or controlled. They just like to have a sense of continuity in life, a sense of tradition, a sense of routine. And when it feels like at any moment things could spontaneously go in a different direction, when life is constantly changing and evolving, and there's no consistency or stability, they feel really out of their element. They feel really overwhelmed. ISFJs operate at their best when they know what to expect, when they have a routine, when they can really master the art of their traditions, their routine, and their day-to-day lives. You know how life just goes more smoothly when you can go on autopilot because you know how the day is going to go, or how a certain morning ritual is going to unfold, or where things are and when. When that doesn't happen because your life is really chaotic and really full of interruptions and unexpected surprises or changes in plans, it creates a lot more stress, specifically for ISFJ personality types. Another thing that creates a lot of stress for ISFJs is dealing with a lot of change. And this kind of ties into the last point I made. ISFJs tend to be creatures of habit. And so when they're dealing with a lot of change, particularly big changes, even if those changes are good, it can create a lot of stress for them. For example, maybe there's a big move coming, or a new job, or even a big vacation. They might enjoy these things. These things might even be good for them, but they probably feel a ramping up of stress as that date gets closer, or as this change gets closer, or as the change is ongoing. Fourth, another thing that really creates stress for ISFJs is conflict or disharmony in relationships. We talked earlier about how ISFJs tend to feel very responsible for the mood of the room, for how everyone is feeling. So when there is disharmony, discord, or conflict, that creates a lot of stress. They work very hard to maintain the mood and to help other people and to create a feeling of unity and harmony. So when people are arguing, or people in their family have rivalries or things like that, or if someone's angry at them, it feels extremely stressful to them. They absolutely hate conflict of any kind most of the time, unless you're dealing with an ISFJ Enneagram 8, which is extremely rare. Another thing that creates stress for ISFJs is not having clear expectations. Say they're in a job and what they're doing, the instructions are vague, or the goals post is constantly changing. That can be very stressful for an ISFJ. They like to know exactly what's expected of them, and they also like to get feedback to know that they're on the right track. They're very thorough and competent at their jobs, but they have to have a lot of clarity, and they need and want feedback. And they also need in a workplace to have a supportive environment and community. They like to feel like they're friends with their coworkers. They like to feel like everyone is getting along, and there's a sense of cohesion and family in the workplace. So if it's a really detached, isolated, ambitious, work-only community, that can be a bit stressful for them. They do like to work on their own, don't get me wrong. I mean, having their own office or their own personal space is really nice, but they still want to feel that there is a sense of teamwork in their community. And next, lateness. That's really frustrating and stressful for them if people they are depending on are consistently running late or showing a lack of respect for their time. That can create a lot of anger and frustration for the ISFJ. All right, so now that we know some of the things that create stress for ISFJs, let's talk about how they react to stress. First, we're going to look at how ISFJs respond to medium everyday stress. So when ISFJs experience everyday stress, the first thing they do is tend to rely more on their natural strength. So they do become more true to type. ISFJs under stress tend to become more focused on the details and making them just right, or more focused on fixing the relationships and taking care of how everyone's feeling. They might reach out to people to talk about their own feelings, to vent, to get emotional support. Other ISFJs withdraw and they try to reflect on everything that happened and replay it to see what went wrong and how they could fix it or what they could learn from it. In general, ISFJs are going to lean on their top two cognitive functions, which if you're not familiar with cognitive functions, that's okay. You don't have to be a master expert on these to understand what we're talking about. ISFJs have two top functions. These are the ones that they lean on and they're the most confident and competent with most of the time. And those two functions are introverted sensing and extroverted feeling. Introverted sensing is the part of the ISFJ that notices every detail, that compares and contrasts the past with the present, that reflects on things to see what stood out, that creates traditions and wants routines and wants a sense of continuity and predictability in life. Introverted sensing is also very immersed in the inner body sensations one has. So having inner body homeostasis is important. ISFJs tend to know pretty quickly when they're feeling tired, when they're feeling thirsty or hungry, or when something they've eaten tastes just a little bit off. So when ISFJs are under stress, they're going to lean more into that introverted sensing. They're going to become more focused on the details. They're going to pull away more to think about the past and to think about anything they could learn from the situations that are unfolding. And where did the mistake happen? What caused the stress? What can I learn from that? They might become more nitpicky about the details in their environment. So if they're stressed, they might become more focused on cleaning things up and getting them just right. They might become focused on getting their body in a state of homeostasis and well-being again, like having a drink of water or going for a walk or having a nap, like taking care of the physical needs, because introverted sensing is very aware of how you feel in your own skin. And extroverted feeling, that's the second function that ISFJs lean on, and that's about expressing your feelings and values to other people as well as maintaining and tending to the feelings of the people around you. And when ISFJs are stressed, they may lean into that function as well, which might result in venting about their feelings to someone else, talking about their feelings to someone else and getting support. It might focus on taking care of other people in an effort to try to fix the situation. For example, if they're stressed because there's conflict, they might try to take care of everyone's feelings so that conflict goes away. So this is how ISFJs tend to appear when they're experiencing everyday stress. But there's another form of stress that isn't talked about as much, and that's called grip stress. Grip stress is what happens when an ISFJ has been pushed to the limit for way too long. They're dealing with a really intense ongoing stress or illness or sleep deprivation. They are at the end of their rope. So what happens with grip stress is the ISFJ has been leaning so hard on their top two functions, that introverted sensing and that extroverted feeling, to try to solve the problem, but it's not going away. For example, imagine an ISFJ is in the process of a big move and setbacks keep occurring over and over again. A contract on a house falls through. The job that they're partner was going to have falls through. There's just more and more problems. Their normal tools that they use to deal with stress are failing them. They keep trying to solve everything through introverted sensing and extroverted feeling, and it's not working. And in the process, they wear out their dominant function, introverted sensing. So when grip stress happens, the top function basically takes a long nap, and the inferior function rises up to the surface and takes control. So the inferior function of the ISFJ is called extroverted intuition, or NE for short. Extroverted intuition is the part of the ISFJ that is curious about new possibilities. It's focused on seeing new ways of doing things. It's interested in change and also finding abstract connections between things. It's more interested in what could be than what is. For many ISFJs, this is part of their creativity, is they can look at something and they can think of many ways to use that thing to create something. For example, they might be walking along a stream and find some stones and think, oh, I could make a really cool mosaic with this stone. And that extroverted intuition part of them is part of what gives them that creativity. However, extroverted intuition for an ISFJ is not really a trusted process. This tends to be a process that they feel a lot of uncertainty or even insecurity around. So they don't lean on it too much. So when extroverted intuition takes the wheel, it comes out usually in a fairly extreme or immature way. So ISFJs in grip stress, instead of thinking of all these cool possibilities of things that could happen, usually what happens is they think of all these terrible things that could happen. They're experiencing stress and they go, oh, let's take the moving example as an example. You go, oh my gosh, we're going to be out of a home. We're going to be homeless. Everything is going to fall apart. We're going to go to this new place and my kids aren't going to make any friends and my husband's not going to get a job and I'm going to have to get a job, but I don't have the right qualifications. We're going to end up broken on the street. And they just start thinking of all these terrible things that are going to happen. It just keeps multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. They also seem to get these kind of signs or make these connections out of nowhere that are really ominous or depressing. It just feels like everything is going to go wrong. And not just in one way, but in dozens of ways. So ISFJs in the grip of NE, of extrovert intuition, tend to be catastrophizers. Everything's going to go wrong. There's doom and gloom at the end of every path. Often they feel stuck in these kind of chaotic brainstorms of horrible things. They become more scattered in their focus. ISFJs are usually pretty focused on the details and on what they're trying to do. But when they're in the grip of extroverted intuition, they feel extremely scattered. They feel pulled in many different directions and compelled to explore many different paths of maybe research or things they have to do. Like they might feel an urgent sense that they need to clean their living room, but at the same time they feel an urgent sense that they need to research, I don't know, the likelihood of nuclear war in the future, and they might feel an urgent sense that they need to go drive around to another city. Like they feel pulled in every direction, and they also feel like everything is going to lead to something negative, and it's a very overwhelming situation for them. It's very stressful, and as you can imagine, it sounds really stressful. And so that's what grip stress looks like for ISFJs. And a lot of times, ISFJs just feel like they're out of control during this situation. They don't feel like they have access to their normal powers of thinking. So now that we've talked about these different types of stress, we have to get to the part of what can ISFJs do about it. First of all, it's important for anyone when they're experiencing stress to be able to get their body to a good place. A lot of stress is physical, and you can control a lot of that stress reaction that you're having by getting your physical self in a better state. So doing things like breathing exercises can really help. So take a deep breath for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, and then exhale for 4 seconds. Do this 5 or 10 times. Keep working on it. When you calm your breathing down, it sends signals to your brain that it's okay to calm down and relax, that you're not facing a threat in the wild. You're not out in the desert being chased by a lion. Because if you were, your breathing would be speeding up, right? But as you're slowing your breathing down and getting more control of your breathing, it tells your brain, hey, I'm not in a life or death situation right now. So focusing on breathing exercises can be a really helpful way to reduce that immediate stress. You also might want to just do a check on how you're physically feeling. Are you tired? Do you need water? Do you need a healthy snack? Are you feeling sore? Do you need to stretch your muscles? If you're an ISFJ and you're in the grip of extroverted intuition, then you probably feel a little more disconnected from your body than usual. And so you might be forgetting things like when to get a drink of water, or you might be really sore and have a lot of physical aches and pains, but you're not really conscious of it, but it is affecting that stress level. So take a survey of your body and see if there's anything that you need to give yourself. Another thing you probably need is some time alone. If you're in grip stress and you are just surrounded by people who are interrupting you or creating more noise and chaos in your life, that's not going to help. Taking some time alone to just breathe, to have a cold drink of water, to focus on calming your body and organizing your thoughts, that can be really helpful. Another thing that can be really helpful is getting a little exercise. I'm talking low intensity exercise, okay? Some people, they really like high intensity exercise as a way of dealing with stress. But for ISFJs, I've heard many times that for them, it's not so much about pumping really heavy weights or something like that. It's more about maybe taking a quiet walk alone or doing some gentle yoga stretches. Doing some exercise can help you to feel a little bit more in control. It can also release some of those stress reducing endorphins that we get when we exercise that make us feel good. Next, some ISFJs do get help when they are experiencing stress if they can access a little bit of their thinking side. This doesn't mean going and having a logical discussion with someone, absolutely not. It means maybe pulling out a Sudoku puzzle or a crossword and doing something like that, or taking something they're interested in, say they're interested in African wildlife, and just learning about it for a little while and giving themselves a break on their own to do something that wakes up the logical side of their mind. I know many ISFJs who talk about enjoying simple brain teasers, playing solitaire, doing a little game on their phone, things like that can help them to access the thinking, rational part of their mind, but not under the pressure of doing it with other people present. After ISFJs have had some time alone, then talking out their feelings can be a really positive thing, especially with someone who will not patronize them, who will not critique their feelings. Because if you're talking to an ISFJ who is in the grip, they might seem really panicky. They might seem like they're having a lot of, to you, absurd ideas about all these horrible things that could happen in the future. Having someone tell them, hey, that's absurd, it doesn't necessarily help. They just need someone to listen to their feelings. And oftentimes, as they're talking out these feelings, their brain starts to make sense of what's going on for them emotionally. So they might say things that they later on retract or redact because they're like, oh wait, that didn't actually make sense. But the process of talking out their feelings is really healthy for them. So having someone who knows how to just listen and support and be there for them without taking everything they say and critiquing it for correctness can be extremely helpful. Also, being able to take a little break from non-essential responsibilities can be very helpful. If an ISFJ has a really packed schedule, then when they're stressed, it can feel like that stress is not going to go away until everything is done, and everything that's on their schedule from today to next week can feel like it's just weighing on them. So if there's any non-essential obligations they can pull out of responsibly, then that's something that can also really reduce stress. Now, after ISFJs have reached a more manageable level of calm, the stress is more at a medium level and not at a grip level, they can be helped by talking to someone who can help break down something stressful into more manageable pieces. For example, if you're talking to ISFJ who's really stressed because they have a big deadline approaching and they have a huge project, talking to someone who can tell them, first off, if you want to offer an ISFJ advice, ask them first if they actually want advice or if they just need a listening ear. I do want to preface by saying that because if they just want a listening ear, then advice is not going to help, no matter how good it is. If they do want advice, though, breaking down a big task into manageable bite-sized pieces can really encourage them and help them. So in this case, if they have a big project that's looming and a deadline that's approaching, but they don't know where to begin, being able to break it down and say, let's do this much today, just do this step now, this step tomorrow, and this step the next day. Being able to break a big thing down to more manageable pieces can help to reduce their stress a lot. So I hope this has been helpful. I've got more information about this online. I also have a new ebook called the ISFJ Understanding the Protector that's available on my website. I will put a link in the description, and it's got all kinds of information about the ISFJ mind, about the ISFJ childhood experience, information for ISFJ parents, for ISFJs in relationships, ISFJs in midlife, ISFJs dealing with perimenopause. ISFJs in career fields and the joys and struggles that they face there. We have self-guided journaling prompts along the way through that book to help you implement some of the things you'll learn about your personality type. So that book is available. Like I said, I'll put a link in the description. If you're not sure about your personality type and you'd like to talk to someone, I am available also for one-on-one Zoom sessions where I can help you to clarify your best fit personality type, or if you're just curious about your personality type and would like to know more and have a one-on-one conversation with an MBTI practitioner, then I'm available for that as well. I will put links to my clarification sessions as well as my coaching sessions on the description for this video. If you have a comment or question, please feel free to leave one. I'd love to hear from you and respond to you. And you can subscribe for more videos like this. You can probably hear my kids in the distance. But I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.